The matriarch Cathara stood 9 feet tall, her obsidian scales gleaming under the binary suns of Velcroth Prime. She was apex, predator, the terror of a dozen star systems. Her kind had ruled the outer rim for millennia, and no species had ever questioned their supremacy, until humanity arrived. Cathara's claws flexed as she watched Commander Rhea Locke step off the shuttle. The human was small, barely reaching Cathara's chest, with skin the color of terracotta and eyes that held an unsettling calm. This was the species that had turned back 3 Velcroth war fleets without firing a single killing shot. This was the species that fought with something Cathara's people had never understood: restraint. "You wish me to train your young," Rhea said, her voice steady. It wasn't a question. Cathara's throat rumbled, a sound that made prey species flee. "My cubs are born warriors. They need only to be sharpened." "Weapons are sharpened, matriarch," Rhea replied. "Children are raised." The insult hung in the air. Cathara's officers tensed, hands moving toward plasma rifles. But the matriarch raised one massive claw, halting them. There was something in this human's eyes, not fear, not submission, but a challenge wrapped in patience. 6 lunar cycles. Cathara growled. "If they return unchanged, your species answers for the waste of time." Rhea smiled, a gesture that showed her flat, useless teeth. "When they return, matriarch, you won't recognize them." Joran was the eldest of the 5 cubs sent to the human training facility on Sanctuary Station. At 14 standard years, he was already a capable killer. His first hunt had come at age 7, his first sapient kill at 10. Pride swelled in his chest as he and his siblings boarded the transport, certain they would return with new techniques to crush their enemies. The facility was not what Joran expected. No weapons ranges, no combat pits. The humans had built something that looked almost like a school. Commander Locke met them in a simple gray uniform, unarmed. "Welcome," she said. "For the next 6 cycles, I am your instructor, your commander, and your guardian. What I teach you will make you more dangerous than you've ever imagined, but not in the way you think." The first week was humiliating. Locke taught them mathematics, orbital mechanics, xenobiology. Joran's sibling Kess snarled in frustration. "We are warriors. Teach us to fight." Locke's expression never changed. "You already know how to fight. I'm teaching you how to win." The second week, they learned logistics, supply chains, communication protocols. Joran began to see patterns he'd never noticed before. How battles were won not just with claws and teeth, but with preparation and knowledge. The third week brought physical training unlike anything they'd experienced. Humans, Joran learned, were endurance predators. While his species could sprint and kill in explosive bursts, humans could run for hours, days if necessary. They didn't give up. Ever. Locke ran beside them every morning, her smaller frame somehow keeping pace despite their superior physiology. "Pain is temporary," she would say. "Discipline is forever." But it was the 4th week that changed everything. Locke took them to the station's medical bay, where human doctors treated refugees from a dozen conflicts, species the Velcroth had conquered, wounded in wars his people had started. Joran watched as human medics worked 18-hour shifts, saving lives that any Velcroth warrior would have considered worthless. "Why?" Joran asked, his translator struggling with the concept. "These are prey, weak. Why waste resources?" Locke turned to him, and for the first time he saw something fierce in her eyes. Not rage, but conviction. "Because strength without compassion is just cruelty. Because we measure our civilization not by who we can defeat, but by who we choose to protect." She placed a hand on his shoulder, a gesture that should have felt threatening but somehow didn't. "Your people are magnificent warriors, Joran. But warriors without wisdom become tyrants, and tyrants always fall." The 5th and 6th weeks tested everything they'd learned. Locke put them through combat scenarios where victory meant protecting the weak, where the objective wasn't to kill but to de-escalate, to find the solution that saved the most lives. She taught them that true strength was knowing when not to use force. Joran excelled. His siblings transformed beside him. They learned to think 3 moves ahead, to value intel over instinct, to understand that the deadliest warrior was the one who never needed to prove it. When the transport returned to Velcroth Prime, Matriarch Cathara waited at the landing pad, expecting to see her cubs unchanged or broken. What she saw instead made her blood run cold. They moved with purpose, not aggression. Their eyes held focus, not rage. And when Joran approached, he didn't posture or snarl. He stood at attention and saluted, a human gesture, before speaking. Matriarch, we have returned. Commander Locke sends her regards. Cathara studied her eldest. His scales were scarred from training, his muscles leaner but harder. But it was his eyes that disturbed her. They held something her species had never cultivated: wisdom. What did she do to you? Cathara demanded. Joran's jaw set. She taught us that we were never as strong as we believed, because we never understood what true strength was. He stepped forward, and for the first time in her long life, Cathara felt something unfamiliar: respect for a lesser species. The humans don't fight to dominate, Joran continued. They fight to protect. They endure what would break us. They carry burdens we would abandon, and when they extend their hand, it's not to strike, it's to lift others up. He looked back at his siblings, all standing with the same disciplined posture. Commander Locke transformed us, Matriarch, not into better killers, but into better leaders. We are Velcroth, we will always be warriors, but now we understand what we're fighting for. Cathara's throat tightened. She had sent her cubs to be sharpened. They had returned as something far more dangerous. They had returned with hope. In the distance, Sanctuary Station orbited serenely, and somewhere aboard it, Commander Rhea Locke was already preparing for the next generation of students. Because humanity had learned long ago that the best way to change the galaxy wasn't through conquest, it was through education. And the predators were finally learning to evolve.